Okay, good morning, everybody. Guardians, ghosts, and gamers alike. This is Hako, your artist poet, here on PlayStation 4 with Destiny 2. And like the title says, it's how to get good at playing Destiny 2. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. Thanks for watching. See you again next time. I'm teasing, guys. I'm teasing. There are thousands of hours out there on the internet, and YouTubes, and Twitches, articles written by gaming magazines, to just the small insights of the smaller time, publishers and creators out there. Everybody's got advice and help on how to get good at doing pretty much anything, really, from playing a musical instrument to scrambling eggs to whatever, even on how to make videos, which of course I have not taken the time to even possibly invest in my format, which is basically I start off with a talking point and then just meander my way on through the content as I so want to choose to do. But in any case, so getting good at Destiny. Now, this is a new week. It is a Tuesday morning, so we have the reset. I haven't checked anything online yet, so you're going to get my raw reaction as I wander through the tower, seeing what's available both in the Eververse store and what's on the menu for my various activities that I like to do. But more importantly, this week's theme is getting good at Destiny. Last week's theme was how to have fun playing Destiny. And for a lot of players, getting good at the game is a lot of fun for the game. Turn in your Vanguard tokens. Oh yeah, this is a thing that's going to be happening in a couple of weeks, and I am super excited for this because I like the system that Gambit and Crucible have, where you don't have to worry about hauling around tokens in your inventory or whatever. It's like you get a pop-up notification when it's time to come in and get rewards. So if you want to be a binge player like myself and just hang out in the environment, you can for however long you want and not have to worry about, However, for some players, I would see that not having a clear roadmap of progression might be a bit of a problem. But then again, if you're an OCD gamer, like I sometimes slip into being from time to time, having an odd number of tokens in your inventory would just drive you nuts. And it does. It drives me crazy. It makes me uncomfortable, so much so that I don't look at my inventory page a lot of times, and I'm sitting on all kinds of resources that I'm not even aware of half the time. Season is ending soon. The season of the Splicer is almost over. Yes, finally, we can get on some new content here. Let's think about that. Let's take a look at what we have for my quests. And the Splicer Gauntlet is all used up. I'm going to have to add some more ether to this. So we got the new week. We have the new chest progressions. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So getting good in Destiny, that's again, going to be a very subjective term and approach, because it all depends on how you have fun in Destiny. What it is did you find out last week if you went through with me on how to have fun playing Destiny 2? You will have uncovered some of the perspectives and lenses with which to see this game and see your gameplay and your engagement, so that you can distill what it is about the game that makes you feel happy when you play, so that when you put down the controller, you're thinking about the next session. You're like, I can't wait to get back in and play, whether it be because you're playing with friends or you're playing by yourself like I do. Um, or whatever the reason, whatever's drawing you back into the game, and hopefully that's not the darker side of the feedback loop, which is ego boosting, FOMO, and basically peer pressure. So I have some residual bounties here, which I think I will probably go ahead and complete. And good, Crucible is a fantastic way to get into finding out what makes what you qualify as getting good. I want to be good at Crucible? Of course I do. Every player wants to be good at the entirety of the game. You want to know that you've mastered the techniques and the mechanics and the strategies and the tactics and the meta, yada 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 yada. My last video was all about focusing as a way to find happiness in how you're playing the games that you play. And focusing is also how you get good. Oh my god, it's almost like I had a study plan here. Uh, is also how you get good at what you're doing. When you want to learn to play a musical instrument, be it the guitar, the keyboard, the flute, whatever, the first thing you have to learn is the mechanics behind that instrument. You have to learn what makes notes, how are notes made, how do you arrange notes to make chords and harmony, rhythm and tempo, and all those fun things about musical theory. Same thing goes for being an artist, wanting to be a painter, wanting to draw or illustrate things. You need to figure out the mechanics behind that. How does pigment work with mediums and vehicles? How does all that interact with substrates and supports? What do all those terms freaking even mean? What's the purpose and point? And what is the benefit and purpose of priming a surface before putting actual color and paint on it? What is the benefit of having an armature when you start doing a sculpture? What is the benefit of doing a sketch before you do anything at all? So this first day is actually going to be about the sketching process or the theory work on how to get good with Destiny. First thing we need to do is we need to try to deconstruct how this game is played. What are the mechanics in this game, and how does the physics in this game work? Because all games like Destiny, which are first-person shooters, have a set of physics. It's the engine that runs this game. And there's been a lot of memes and jokes about how it's a 1996 gaming engine that runs Destiny, and I'm actually kind of believing most of them. Hold on a second. So, excuse me. That's not coffee, by the way. That's just chocolate milk. The coffee is still brewing. First, I want to go ahead and check if, in fact, anybody else is on this channel. Anybody else here? Because I don't want to. I just joined into a losing game. Well, there goes my KD. I'm teasing. I didn't kill anything, and I didn't die, so KD is 0. But we could take a look at this. This is a good way to look at those zeros. Look at all those zeros. Okay, like I said, I suck at PvP. Sorry for anybody who I join on. Wow, they just dominated. That's kind of fun. But yeah. So again, just like we ended off on how to have fun with Destiny 2 is all about focus and patience. Getting good at anything you play is all about focus and patience. I really want to try to clear up these bounties before I go back to the tower and pick up more. So maybe that's survival, freelance survival. Momentum! Huh. This is probably where I should probably play. That's Rumble, that's Elimination. So let's go ahead and start off with the mechanics. Okay, so the game is all about shooting in first person, and what does the shooting involve? Okay, so you break that down. Okay, you pick out the points that make shooting what it is. It's about, well, let's take a look at our weapons. Let's take a look at the stat rolls on these weapons. Pardon me. You have impact, range, stability, handling, and reload speed, and all of this works together along with magazine size and rounds per minute. Now, this is really important because you want to make sure you have enough magazine to support that rounds per minute. A lot of times in gunfights, I will notice that I run out of magazine super fast on high rate of fire weapons. Most magazines in the game will support their rate of fire. 450 for an auto rifle is not that fast, and so therefore a 34 backup mag is not a bad idea. It's not, really a problem before. This is how many rounds you spit out before you reload, obviously. So when you're thinking about how to improve your gun skills, how you improve your gunplay, you want to think about where you're lacking. That's going to be the first analysis. As how you can't really control impact, although impact does have an impact on how fast you eliminate targets, known as the time to kill or TTK. And I'm not going to dive too much into all this. Like I said, there are thousands of hours of content out there on the YouTube when it breaks down all these stats, and there are guys out there who have crunched spreadsheets of numbers that are just the most in-depth study that I ever put myself through. But I have the overview is what I'm trying to give you here. So the essentials is that you want to focus on where you feel you're not doing good in, where you feel you're struggling, where you feel you need to be improving in the most, uh, as far as as far as the game is concerned. And again, that's going to be knowing who you are, knowing how you play, knowing how you like to engage in targets, knowing how you prefer to arrange your positioning in the battlefield, because Destiny is a game of movement, and that is something that almost everybody says, is that it's all about battlefield placement. It's all about how you engage the target, from what distance you start engagements, uh, and at what distance do you close those engagements. At what point do you allow yourself an exit window? You need to have an exit strategy. Anytime you go into a duel, you should always be thinking about how you're going to break that, how you're going to finish that duel, how you're going to end that duel. And you have two options. The one is either you've eliminated the target or you're trying to evade getting eliminated by the target. And for me, I find that most of my engagements end with both of us getting annihilated, because I go PBR, point blank range, and I either throw a grenade, launch a rocket, or I shotgun in and then get myself punched at the same time. And that could be a product of my internet versus their internet versus the game's internet. Um, that's all out there. That's partly not something you can. Well, 1/3 of that formula you can control. You can get better hardware. You can get a faster internet service. You can invest in more processing speeds. Like I said, better hardware. Um, so depending if you play on console or PC, and that is a corporeal, real world type of thing you can do to improve your gameplay. You could upgrade your controller. Maybe you're playing on an older controller that's had a lot of wear and tear on it, so some of the sticks or buttons are like not connecting properly. I know for a fact that on my current controller, the left stick, because Destiny is a left stick runner and sprinter, and I do a lot of running and sprinting in Destiny, that the left stick forward position is so abused that when I go to play Minecraft, if I just put my character at rest, he'll start creeping forward, and if I go into the inventory, it'll start bouncing upwards. And I could tell when my controller is like doing that, because you'll see the drift on the stick. You'll see the drift of your character when you're standing still, and that means that I should probably that's probably impacting how I move my character in positioning and all that stuff. So these little micro changes, these little what would basically amount to millimeters of movement in real world, they do affect things like aim and positioning and things like that. They can that few extra meters that your character drifts in the game could be the difference of you showing up on an opponent's radar or not. Um, and so you have to be aware of that. So on the hardware side of things, those are things you can do to try and improve your gameplay. But the real deal is all about understanding how the game interprets what your desires are and what your actions are versus what's going to happen in the game. And again, that's going back to the gun stats. And so, working with 600s versus magazine size, working with a 600 RPM rifle or a 720 RPM rifle, you're spraying out a lot of bullets, but the impact's not going to be so high. Now, the Seven Seraph carbine, this is not a good gun by any stretch of the word. But what it does excel on is range. Okay, the Seven Seraph excels on range. Plus, it also has the added perk that it generates Warmind cells, which you can exploit in the game as explosions to clear, clusters of enemies or do significant damage to a hardened target. Now, you don't generate Warmind cells in PvP, which I think is kind of a shame because honestly, if there was the ability to generate Warmind cells in PvP, I think that would just be a massive meta changer. It would make Seraph weapons even more valuable and desirable. But as it is, I play with Seraph weapons because I like the aesthetic, and I play with them because they generate the Warmind cells, and I just look for guns that basically mitigate the fact that they might not always have the highest impact. They might not always be the most stable, but they do excel pretty well in handling. Now, I did add a counterbalance stock here, which works with stability and handling in the terms of recoil. So that's another factor in the game that doesn't show up on this bar here, but is actually a stat in the game that is a characteristic of the weapon. Recoil direction is going to be vertical, left, right, in all degrees thereof. So if you're like firing a gun and you're realizing that the verticality is not where it wants to be, find a gun that it has better recoil to it. If you're struggling with lining up your shots and getting them to stay where you want them, that's your targeting skill as a player, so you want to work on targeting skills. And the way you can improve that is just getting in and focusing on that aspect when you're playing the game. For instance, this is a lot of the reasons why I do the gunsmith bounties is because it works on my targeting and battlefield placement, because those are the 2 points that I have the most problem with. An enemy is also a big thing. A lot of times I do ape in, and I'm not a Titan. I'm playing a Hunter. Hunters are supposed to start their engagements at range and then finish their engagements in melee, which is either going to be a full-on charged melee or an uncharged punch, or it's going to be a PBR grenade. Because our grenades don't really do a lot of damage, but they are there to kind of like bring a target out. So understanding your character's class and its class abilities, understanding how strong and tough it is against targets, understanding how you approach an enemy, how you approach a target, how you would plan to engage that target and lead up on that. I mean, initiate damage against that target and then eventually remove it. So focusing on where it is you feel you are not the strongest in gameplay and then deconstructing that particular aspect to its elements, to its functional parts that work against you or with you, and then mitigating those deficiencies first with in-game playing pieces like the weapons and the armor, the abilities, and the character classes, and then developing muscle memory. And I'm not a big fan of muscle memory actually, because when things change in the meta, like for instance slide shots, a lot of people have the muscle memory to slide in, and like I mentioned in a reaction video that I did last week, um, sliding in to start an engagement is not a bad thing. It's what you do after the slide that's being affected, and deliberately it's affecting shotguns. It's working against shotgun players. So how are you going to adapt to the change in that mechanic? Well, don't use a shotgun when you slide in, or don't expect to get a shotgun kill when you slide in. Maybe, maybe pick up a weapon that can be charged up while you're sliding, like a fusion rifle. Does the same impact as a shotgun, or more importantly, just do something different after the slide. Throw down a well, throw down a bubble, throw down a grenade, or something like that. Throwing a frost grenade, a stasis grenade at an opponent as you slide into them is very jarring. It's very jarring. Um, so understanding that, like I said, I'm going to keep this under 30 minutes because I'm rambling now. Um, so the first step you want to do in getting good at Destiny is understanding how the game is played. The game is played with mobility, and the game is played with thumb skills and targeting. Um, because it's a first-person shooter, so you want to be able to. There's an old rule of thumb when it came to fighter pilots, and among fighter pilots, there's an understanding that the safest space to be in a dogfight is where your enemy actually is. And since you can't be there, be right behind him. And unless your craft has a tail gun and a tail gunner, or you've got some, countermeasures that can, fight that. I don't know why I keep bouncing in and out of the lobby. I might have to reset my console. Um, yeah. So when you're engaging in PvP, because today's focus is going to be on PvP, was on PvP, think about how you're approaching your target. Are you coming at them head on, which is called aping, or are you trying to outflank them? Are you trying to come up from behind? Are you using stealth? Are you crouching up? Are you sliding up? What are those skills that you don't think you're doing the best in? And then just focus on doing just those skills. Don't be concerned about whether or not you're winning the match. Don't be concerned about whether or not you're winning those engagements. Focus on getting in and out of a duel. Um, I would recommend that would be one of the first things you want to do when you're trying to get into PvP. You're trying to improve your skills as a player in PvP. Don't jump right into Trials or Iron Banner, although Iron Banner is fun to play, whether you're a very skilled player or not. Um, but start off with Control. That way you have an idea of where your enemies are going to be clustered. Start off with Mayhem, gets you used to timing your supers and learning about their range and learning about their effects, and come to the conclusion that you may not play a Titan or a Warlock or a Hunter as best as you can, because just like as much as I enjoy the sound of guitar and have studied guitar all my life and have practiced guitar all my life, I, for the love of me, cannot get my stubby little English fingers across the fretboard to the point where I can manipulate a decent chord. I can power chord my ass through just about anything, and that, in my opinion, is fine. But if I wanted to do some kind of intricate, riff or anything like that, if I wanted to, bring in Iron Maiden levels solos, um, that is some fretboard work that my dexterity does not accommodate. And yes, with practice and time, I probably could do that. But I have so many other interests and hobbies and goals with my time that learning all of the guitar and focusing on just guitar, because it would take that. It would take hours a day dedication to finish that, to complete that task. Uh, I just don't have the patience for it. Just like I don't have the patience for raids. It's not that I can't do a raid. I can play very well in raids. I'm very much aware of the mechanics. I'm very much of the team synergies and things like that. It's just that I don't have the patience to invest the hours that go into a raid just for a chance at a role that I might be happy with. And so I go with activities I know are going to reward my monkey brain. And on that note, I'm going to shut up now and let you guys watch what I'm talking about here, and then we'll finish this vid. Okay, so almost completely under 30 minutes. Some key points in that video in that last match. Notice that it is blackout, which means there's no radar. So you have to be aware. Like I said, Destiny is played on mobility, and it's played on it is a movement skill game. That also affects and you know your targeting skills as well. So it's targeting and movement skills, and then of course we're just focusing on things like that. As you can see, my initial engagement strategy was just run in, just rush in and figure out where the enemies are cloistering, if they're coordinating with each other. I believe I chose momentum control. That was I think there's no freelance version, so we have the possibilities of fire teams. I did not check to see if I was playing with any fire teams in this match. So let's take a look here if I have this up here. The other side. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. These guys could have all been in a fire team. It didn't make a difference now. Um, so typically, if players come in as a group of two or more, they're going to stick together, or they're going to run pincer movements and stuff like that. Knowing about the map, and there's this great feature in the game that you can play private matches where you don't have to actually um, you can go into the game options here. You can pick your maps. We were playing on, where is it? The spawn thingy. I think it's called. Where is it called? No. Yeah, Wormhaven. There we go. We were playing on Wormhaven, and we want to set the time limit for maximum because we want to give ourselves as much time to look around the map. Okay, and that's it. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to launch. So if you feel like you're having a problem figuring out where enemies spawn, where targets will spawn, where people are going to hang out, what the fire lanes are, these are all things you have to be. Map awareness is really critical with PvP. And map awareness, of course, ties straight into mobility and engagement strategies. And then after that, you can work on things like, trigger skills, sighting skills and things like that. Are you ADS? Are you hipfire? When to be either one? That's all going to be about your style of play, your preference of play. And really, it's all about getting to a point where you feel comfortable in your abilities and you know your limitations. If you notice that towards the late game, I was hanging back because I realized that my weapons were not going to be suitable um, for this kind of gameplay. Okay, now, there's no real way for you to reset your spawn, but you can tell that this is a spawn point right here. There's no overhead map. So you open up the map, it doesn't show you. It will not show you um, a map of the combat zone, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, it's fine. You'll learn the callouts, the zone callouts, because there's alcove over here. You see that next to the radar. It says that. Um, I don't know if it says it. It won't say it during blackout, so you're gonna have to just be aware. This is the forest. This is a spawn point, and then of course across the map, which we're getting to here in a few minutes. This is where heavy will spawn. Heavy has two spawn points, but in blackout, and in momentum, it has actually I think four spawn points. There's a spawn point over there. There's one right here, and then there's one over there, and then of course then there's this one down here. And this is all pretty much the center of the map. This is where people are going to more or less be hanging out. A lot of times you'll notice players going for B post because they want to have that as an anchor because it's a spawn point. It's a possible spawn point. Although you're more likely to spawn over in those hallways if A and C are taken. And there's also a very limited chance that you could spawn right underneath me down here and here. But yeah, over by the C post, behind the C post, there's a spawn point as well. So map control, in control, map domination is very obvious. You'll see, the control points turn color versus onto who holds them. But in a map like, in a format like Mayhem or in Clash, um, you can still control the map by making sure you have players hanging out in this area right around here. This is where I'm saying being aware of the fact that you're playing against a fire team or with a fire team if you're the rando. Um, how can you support your fire team to win the game? Because if you want to get good to win matches, then you don't need to be the dead shot to win matches. You don't need to be the Bloodsport or the Peacemaker to win matches. You can win matches by being the Weasel. You can win matches by being King Shark. You can win matches by being Harlequin, going deep into the enemy territory, whether intentionally or not, and working from the inside. That means to say that if you know that the enemy team is locking down B and they want B as much as possible, there are many ways for you to get there to disrupt their spawn towards B without actually exposing yourself. And I'm just using Wormhaven here as the example because it's the most recent match we played. Uh, Similarly, you can use heavy ammo as bait. So a lot of your gameplay in PvP is not really going to be so much about your targeting skills. Is going to be. This is why I like the Seraph weapons, because on short bursts it has a really nice controlled recoil. But as you can see, just holding down. See, look at that. Look at that. That's nice. It does have an upper left kind of lean. And then, of course, when moving, you know, and when sprinting, of course, you're not going to be firing. But if you slide in, this is a trigger trick that I do. I will ADS, and I'll start sprinting, and say that X is my target. Line up that little arrow, and then boom, right there. You slide in, you're firing immediately as soon as you hit the slide button. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's do a run. Now, there's a thing in Destiny. You have limitless endurance. Most games that allow your character to sprint like this will have a stamina bar of some kind, where you have a very limited amount of time before you can do this. So this is what I'm talking about, learning how slide shooting is not going to be nerfed so much so as people like to claim it is and react to it is. Let's make the center of that. Okay, so you're rushing up and then you slide. Whoops, I didn't slide. I just cast my super instead. You can do it. You know what I'm talking about. Basically, you're holding down the ADS button. You start sprinting. Here we go. And then the moment you hit that slide button, you start pulling the trigger. Your ADS, you're sliding in. You're below their line of fire because all they saw was you running. So taking the time for them to react down there, whether they're hip firing or targeting, that when you're firing a weapon, this is how you can figure out whether or not you can do that. If you're just working on targeting skills, this is a good way to do that. You'll get into a Crucible maps by yourself or with a friend, and just practice and develop drawing lines of bullets. Or if you're playing with, seeing how the pellets spread out there. Now, of course, you ran out of energy weapons because there's nobody here generating energy weapon ammo. Anyway, so yeah, we're focusing on just map placement. So getting good at any one thing is recognizing where your limitation is, and then seeing if there's some way you can either adapt to that limitation and make it become a positive. Like, my limitation is that I am not a strong shooter. So how do I mitigate that? Well, I can do one of two things. If I'm playing in a fire team, or if I'm playing with a fire team, I can, late game, like you saw me do, hang back and just not be a point. Okay? If you can't eliminate the target, don't let yourself get eliminated by the target. Maybe you can hold down a spawn point that the fire team seems to be favoring. Maybe you can disrupt a spawn point that the enemy is favoring. By getting in close and being there, you will do what is called flipping the spawn. You can hide out and do call-outs. If you've got a nice little vantage point, most people aren't paying attention to it, but you've got a good view of the map, you can do call-outs for your teammates if you're playing in a fire team or you're playing in a team that is using an open mic. Some lobbies will have an open mic. Most of them on PlayStation, for some reason, don't do it. But this is really turning into a long video, and that's kind of what I want to share. Like I said, the basics of getting good at the Destiny game is, one, understanding how the game is played, what the game looks to you to provide, and figuring out, is your player skill getting in the way of your fun? Okay, if your playing skill is not getting in the way of your fun, you don't need to worry about it. Just focus on having the fun. But be aware of the fact that if you're having so much fun that you seem to be causing your team to slow down a lot, that's probably not something you want to do because they will send you hateful things. Just to prepare you for that. So, getting good in the game is important. It is part of why we play a game, is to get good at it. Uh, but recognizing and understanding what your limitation is, and then accepting that, okay, well, because I do not play guitar very well, the likelihood of me making any money on that is very low. I might be able to do it for my own personal enjoyment, in which case it's a hobby. You have fun doing that. But if I wanted to play guitar for the ego stroking and the boosting of my presence and just getting my adulation and getting my societal approval, then if that's my goal, and I want to do that while being a musician, then I should stop playing video games and doodling and painting miniatures and just learn a musical instrument and practice my ass off to be the best at it as I possibly can. Talent goes a long way. Some gamers are just naturally talented. Figuring out what your talent is in the game space, that's where I'm talking about finding that focus. Find your focus in what you're trying to get good at, and then just deconstruct that and dissect that, break it down to its elements, the different spots and things like that. And again, I recommend and totally encourage you to go out there and find the videos that talk about PvP skills, and understanding that sometimes it might actually be the fact that you're just not going to be that good at it, and you don't have to accept that. You can make that be your focus. That could be your challenge in the game. That could be your one goal in playing Destiny. I want to be top board between both teams in every PvP match. But really, you're going to have to exert some patience here, because you don't want it to not be fun. Because any goal you achieve where you didn't have fun getting to that goal, you're going to not feel so great about it afterwards. And again, this is all, a subjective thing. It really is. But it has some relevance. It has some play in here. So, anyway, that's about all I got to say. Thanks for stopping by.